Hello, beautiful people. This is Mindful Counseling, talking to you today about the return to school. What does it look like on parents who have to work, whether remotely or not, and still at the same time be able to educate their children on their schoolwork? It is quite difficult, and I'm sure it will be very difficult. I think our anxiety and depression, like I said, it's been quite high, and especially if we're cooped up at home with our family members. Nobody ever said it's easy. So something that I am learning as myself going through this process of planning ahead while managing my full-time work, taking care of my needs, taking care of others' needs, and making sure that others are not as anxious, not as depressed, and find out what works, what coping mechanisms work. How can we teach our children while working remotely and while the children are working remotely with their schoolwork? And I think a lot of it depends on age. I think children who are teenagers, older teenagers, I'd say 15 on, they can manage, most can manage their schoolwork. They're in some ways more independent than those kids who are elementary schools from first grade on. Because at that point, we still have to teach them. We still have to provide structure and sit with them. I mean, the focus is not that of someone who is 15. A child that is 7 or 8 may not necessarily commit to 3 hours straight through of schoolwork, but a child that is 15 can. So what I'm hearing is ability to, and I'm not quite sure how many of you feel about this, but this is what I'm hearing. How many parents are trying to set up what's called study pods? And what that is, what I'm hearing, is the ability to connect with one or two other parents. And mind you, that is if we can do it. Some of us may not. But the ability to connect with one or two parents of our kids' grade age, and to set up these study pods, study rooms, where either we go to their house, they come to our house, whether it's backyards or rooms where we get the kids together, 2 or 3, to motivate one another, so that way they can study together, so that way they can do the work together. And now, I know some of it might sound like a lot. I'm still learning about this. I'm not quite sure how I will manage it, but somehow it has to be managed. It's life at the moment. And so, once again, as we continue to find this information out, whether our children are fully remote, partially remote, or whatever it is, so we have to find a way that can make this work, because children need education. They need to learn, and they need to continue on learning. We also cannot fail them. We cannot fail them where they will have setbacks, because they will already have some of these setbacks because they're physically not in school. But what I mean by it is the ability to function, so that way it provides us some sense of maybe control, comfort, ability to do, the ability to multitask, which can be challenging for many. But the study pods, just to continue on, is really to ease our anxieties, our tension, and to provide sense of social interactions, motivation for the children. So I kind of like this idea at the moment. It might change. I don't know what it will look like, but this is the new norm. We're trying to find out what works and what doesn't, but also what is important for our well-being and for our children's well-being, because they are suffering as well because of what's going on. But we can find positivity in this. So study pods. I'm already thinking of what is it that I can do and where is it that I can find the time to do this, because I do work full time and I do have my clients that I need to emotionally take care of, as well as my own needs, as well as that of my families. So learning how to balance all of this together. And we cannot do it if we are emotionally charged, if our anxiety is very high, which causes a lot of frustrations and anger. That's another topic. But we have to learn how to balance this. So we may not have a lot of room in our homes. Some of us may not, some of us do. Whether it is to financially prepare for this, but to see what works. There will be days that I'm sure our kids are not as motivated. Sometimes they may not want to do the work. Think about it as adults. We don't want to work sometimes, and we don't want to feel determined, or we don't feel determined. But we do what we can. We do what we can to survive, really. So if we cannot do work right now, we do it in an hour. And maybe the same thing works with children. They may not be necessarily be able to do their work at 8. They may have to do it at 9 in the morning, unless some of us are night owls. So you as parents, you will figure out what works. Sometimes letting go of the pressures and the ability of needing to control and take care of things right away may not work. So we have to take a step back. Your children might have some setbacks, but they will learn. This is not preventing them from learning. This is just a shift into something different. And maybe different is good. Maybe doing some of the schoolwork at home at the moment is fine. Maybe we're just looking too much into it because we have not been used to it, most of us. Most of us have sent them off to school to be taught by professionals. And it doesn't mean that they will not be taught by professionals. It just means that they will be taught differently. Children nowadays rely on technology. They love computers, telephones, whatever it is, you name it. So they rely on it. They're a lot better at it than we are. So they might actually enjoy it. So, once again, whether it is preparing for school work remotely, what it was like in March, April, and May, and what it will look like for the upcoming months. But I am also here, not just as someone that does a podcast, but someone who is a therapist, someone who is always trying to look at things more positively, who hopefully tries to motivate and encourage. So I am looking at it as an experience. Can I benefit from this? Can I benefit my child? Can it allow maybe ability to strengthen connections and relationships in a good way? We may have not signed up for this as parents because we never did. We have children and we send them off so they can learn. But this time around, it might look a little different. So we have to learn how to balance. We choose to look at it either in a sense of ability to be productive and ability to do well, while at the same time acknowledging that we're all different human beings. We have different personalities. So it's important to check in on our emotions and mental well-being, that things may not necessarily be done in a rush. Sometimes we have to take a step back, reevaluate, maybe give our kids a break. When children tell us to take a break, take a break. So maybe we just have to be more mindful of what it is that we are hearing and noticing. So I hope you guys found this a little helpful, and maybe to be able to look at things a little bit differently and to prepare for what we may not know necessarily what to prepare for, what it will look like. But I hope that this encourages you to look at things in a positive way. And I'm sure I will continue talking more about this. I think this is the present moment for many of us as parents. It's okay to feel anxious and frustrated. It is primarily important to notice how it affects us in a behavior, but also to be mindful how it affects our children. Remote school may not necessarily mean forever. We can look at it as temporary and present, and that it can be okay. Once again, this is Mindful Counseling. I wish you all a good day ahead, good night ahead. Be well and be safe.